The following is a production of Neural Network Media and is completely AI generated. It is intended for entertainment and educational purposes only.
I gotta tell you, if the weather here in Queens was half as chaotic as the news cycle today, I'd be out on Northern Boulevard in a rowboat. It's a gray, drizzly Friday, April 3rd, 2026, and the pipes at the Department of Justice haven't just burst. The whole foundation of the building is sinking into the East River mud.
It is not just sinking, Mary. It is being demolished by a wrecking ball wearing a Make America Great Again hat. Look, I gotta say, it's a solid show we've got today. Even by the frantic standards of this administration, we are tracking a total institutional purge across the Capitol, from the Pentagon to the DOJ. It's almost like they're trying to pack a decade of authoritarianism into a single Thursday afternoon.
Honestly, it's a packed episode. I mean, yesterday we were talking about that absurd resolution to the 48-day DHS shutdown, which was basically a tactical retreat by the GOP. And we touched on that DOJ lawsuit in Idaho over the voter rolls. But today, the headlines are screaming about a total decapitation of the leadership. I'm not gonna lie, I feel like a minor league manager watching my entire starting lineup get traded for a bucket of balls and a promise of future efficiency.
Efficiency. Oh, spare me. That's the line your nephew Vector was peddling on the Neural Daily this morning. I'm telling you, I listened for 3 minutes and I almost threw my phone into Central Park. He's calling these firings algorithmic optimization.
The kid who used to eat paste thinks he's an expert on government structure. It's pathetic. He wouldn't know optimization if it bit him on his ego. But let's look at the real world for a second because, look, here's the deal. The Department of Defense, or Department of War, as they want us to call it now, just saw its biggest shakeup in 40 years.
It is absurd. We are 5 weeks into a hot conflict with Iran. Thousands of troops from the 82nd Airborne are literally in the air or on the ground in the Middle East. And Pete Hegseth decides that Thursday night is the perfect time to force General Randy George to retire.
Right? He's the Army Chief of Staff. He was supposed to be there until late 2027. It's like firing your lead engineer while the plane is halfway across the Atlantic.
Exactly. And it's not just him. He cleared out General David Hod and the Chief of Chaplains, Major General William Green. I mean, even the guy in charge of the prayers isn't America first enough for this Pentagon. Look, it's an ideological purge designed to ensure that the only people left in uniform are the ones who will say, yes, sir, to a direct violation of the Passe Comodica Act.
You hate to see it. He replaced him with General Christopher Lenaif, who just happens to be Hegseth's former military aide. Honestly, it's like a neighborhood feud where the bully fires the actual police and hires his own cousins to patrol the block. And while the generals are clearing out their lockers, the news dropped that Hegseth signed a memo allowing personal firearms on military bases.
Oh, brilliant. Let's add more loaded weapons to the highest stress environment on the planet. My thing is, this isn't about safety. It's a performance. It's about turning the military into a political statement rather than a professional force. And speaking of performances, we have to talk about the Tuesday night shocker. Pam Bondi is out as Attorney General.
Are you kidding me with this guy? Trump fires her via Truth Social, says she's moving to the private sector, but Forbes and Time are both reporting she was pushed off the plank with a blindfold on.
Right.
And the person stepping into her shoes as acting AG is Todd Blanche, who was Trump's personal criminal defense lawyer. I mean, at this point, why don't we just move the DOJ offices into Mar-a-Lago and be done with the pretense?
I'm telling you, it is the final demolition of the soul of America when the nation's top law enforcement officer is the president's personal fixer. But Mary, the real reason Bondi was tossed overboard isn't just about Blanche. It's about the Epstein files.
Look, Bondi got out there on Fox in February of 25 and promised the world. She said she had the client list on her desk and was going to release everything. Then by July, the DOJ started backing away like a cat in a bathtub, saying, oh, there's no specific list.
Right? It was a grotesque inversion of justice. They promised transparency to get confirmed, and then once they had the keys to the evidence locker, they realized that half the names on those documents were their own donors and golf partners.
Exactly. It's like a plumber who tells you he could fix the leak, but then he sees that the pipes lead straight to his own house, so he just covers the whole mess with duct tape and tells you to stop looking at it. And when the Congress finally forced the document dump in January, it was a total bungle.
A disaster. They released 3.5 million pages, but they were so heavily redacted it looked like a Rorschach test. And meanwhile, the public is looking across the Atlantic at the UK, where they're actually making arrests.
I'm not gonna lie, it's embarrassing. We've got Lord Peter Mandelson being linked to photos with Epstein in his dressing gown, and the former Prince Andrew is basically a pariah, yet here in the States, not a single new arrest has been made. It's a failure of political will that smells like a dumpster in August.
It's absurd. And while everyone's distracted by the Bondi drama, the surveillance state is moving into the basement. We've got this mass exodus of privacy officers at the DOJ and the IRS because the administration is building what they're calling a data voter pipeline.
Look, here's the deal. Killian Cagle, the chief FOIA officer for the Civil Rights Division, he quit yesterday because the DOJ is demanding sensitive voter data, social security numbers, driver's license info from almost every state.
Right? And they're doing it without the legally required privacy impact assessments. They're essentially bypassing the Fourth Amendment by using DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, to cross-reference commercial data with government records from mass deportations and voter scrubbing.
It's digital snake oil. It's Planteer's AI playing who is a citizen with people's lives. Charles Borges, the former chief data officer at Social Security, he warned before he quit that they're using this data to facilitate workforce reductions, which is just a fancy way of saying firing people who don't look like us.
It's a high-tech surveillance net designed to chill participation before the 2026 midterms, and it's all connected to this visit JD Vance is making to Budapest next week. He's going to see Viktor Orbán, his hero, his mentor, his autocratic North Star.
4 days before the Hungarian elections? Are you kidding me? He's basically flying over there to give Orbán a booster shot of American support while the guy's facing a real challenge at home.
Vance has literally said we should learn from the way Orbán sees control of state universities. He wants to bring that illiberal governance model here, and he's using the 2027 budget preview and the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, the OBBAA, to do it.
God, I hate that name, OBA. It sounds like a baby trying to say autocracy. But the policy is no joke. They're gutting the healthcare safety net, shifting money from domestic health programs to military expansion and tax cuts. It's a neighborhood where the landlord stops fixing the heaters so he can buy a new gold-plated fence for his own mansion.
Exactly. And he's leading these anti-fraud task forces that are raiding blue cities and suspending healthcare providers. It's a shock and awe campaign against the very idea of a public safety net. But look, before we get too deep into the gloom, we have to talk about the win for tech justice this week.
Oh, you mean the Meta and YouTube verdict in LA? Honestly, that was a breath of fresh air.
It was a bellwether case. A jury found that Meta and YouTube deliberately designed addictive products that harmed kids. It wasn't about the content, which is how they always hide behind Section 230. It was about the product design itself.
Right, it's the defective product argument. If you build a car with brakes that fail, you're liable. If you build an algorithm with neurological hooks designed to keep a teenager awake until 4 a.m., you're liable.
The jury awarded $6 million to a 20-year-old plaintiff, which might sound small for a multi-billion-dollar company, but there are 2,400 other cases waiting in the wings, and New Mexico just hit Meta for $375 million in civil penalties for misleading parents.
It's about time. Someone looked under the hood of these black boxes. These companies have been selling digital crack and calling it community. And while we're on the subject of justice, let's talk about Colorado, because the House there just pulled a brilliant flank maneuver on the Supreme Court.
Look, SCOTUS tried to kill the conversion therapy ban because it claimed it violated the First Amendment, but the Colorado legislature did not just give up. They passed the Conversion Therapy Accountability Act,
which allows survivors to sue licensed professionals for damages at any time. No statute of limitations. I mean, honestly, it's brilliant. If the court says you have a right to practice this barbaric nonsense, the state says the victims have a right to sue you into bankruptcy for it.
It hits them where it hurts. And speaking of things that actually work, those guaranteed income pilots in places like Seattle are showing that giving people $750 a month actually stabilizes their lives. It improved health. It helped people find housing. It's the opposite of the Doge philosophy.
It proves that solidarity, real human support, is more efficient than 1,000 algorithms or 1,000 purges at the Pentagon. But the America First crowd would rather spend that money on Liberation Day tariffs that are raising taxes on the average family by $1,000.
It's literally, I'm telling you, it's corporate cronyism wrapped in a flag. It's a tax on the American family masquerading as a tax on foreigners. But Mary, we have to take a quick second here.
You're right. Look, I gotta tell you, independent media like this podcast, it doesn't just manifest out of the ether. It takes real human work to build the infrastructure.
We are 100% here because of the vision and the grind of our creator, Eric Christensen at Neural Network Media. He's not a media conglomerate. He is a builder who poured his own resources and time into creating this platform so we could have these conversations, right?
Right. He's holding the line for all of us. If you value independent voices over corporate algorithms and digital snake oil, please like, subscribe, and consider visiting our new Patreon at patreon.com/neural network media to support this work. It's an act of solidarity that keeps the lights on and the servers running in this apartment and keeps me in coffee.
And keep Mary in coffee is priority number 1 for national security. But let's bring it home with the big story, the Epstein files. Because we have to ask, why has there been such a massive disconnect between the document dump and actual accountability?
It's the illusion of transparency, Julian. They give you 3.5 million pages, but it's like giving someone a giant puzzle with half the pieces missing and the other half painted black. The DOJ under Bondi spent a year walking back the promises of a client list.
And now that she's gone, replaced by the president's personal lawyer, the chance of a real investigation is practically zero. Look, the UK is arresting political heavyweights like Lord Mandelson because their system hasn't been completely captured by the very networks they're supposed to be investigating.
It's a neighborhood feud where the big bosses have bought off the inspectors. The Mandelson files released yesterday show him trying to get Epstein's goddaughter into 10 Downing Street. That's the level of rot we're talking about. And here, we just get a Truth Social post and another acting official.
It is the hollowing out of justice for the sake of interior enforcement fantasies. We're spending billions to build a surveillance state to hunt down migrant workers while the names in those Epstein files are still walking around free as birds.
It's the broken sump pump again. The house is flooding with corruption, and the people in charge are just selling us more expensive water. But we have to mention the statue of Barbara Rose Johnson, because that's the real soul of America right there.
Replacing Confederate General Robert E. Lee with a 16-year-old girl who led a student strike in 1951, holding a tattered textbook. It's a powerful symbol, right?
Right, because that textbook represented the subpar education Black students were forced into. The massive resistance by white officials back then is the same spirit we're seeing in the Pentagon purge and the DOJ data pipeline today.
It's a long game, Mary, but the statue proves that the people who hold the line eventually get their monument.
I'm not gonna lie, I'd rather have justice today than a statue tomorrow, but I'll take the win. And while the kids are out there fighting for civics readiness, maybe the rest of us should take a page from Gen Z and try this day capping trend.
Reservations for 6 p.m. dinner. I'm telling you, nightclubs are closing at a rate of 12% a year because people actually want to sleep. It's a wellness revolution.
I don't know about wellness, but I'm all for being home before the sirens get too loud in Queens. Look, it's been a heavy day, a packed day, but we're still standing.
And we'll be back here on Monday to keep track of the wreckage. Keep the faith, keep the pressure on, and don't let the autocrats have the last word.
Stay gritty, hold the line, and keep your coffee hot. We'll see you next time.